Hello, my name is Ian, and today we're talking about the Cincinnati Chili Culinary Complex by Tim Lloyd. This is one of my favorite articles. I love Tim, I love Tim's thought, and I just love the simplicity of this article. This is from the early 80s. He presented it for the first time in 1979, no less. So there is something actually quite foundational about this article. Tim's point is that when we think about traditional food, when we think about foodways as an area within folklore scholarship, within folklore research, we tend to think about food systems that are related to ethnic identity and food systems that are related to, if they are related to place, if they are regional, that has to do with the food that is grown, the sort of the indigenous crops of, or the local crops of that area. And he's suggesting that you can go beyond that, that you can take these things that are part of the lived experience of people and suggest that they're actually that they are the foundations for traditions. They are the foundations for local habits, and they are basically folkloric, even if they do not come from this sort of traditional foodway system. Now, shouldn't be revelatory, because by this time, by the late 1970s, the early 1980s, folklore had already grasped that people have meaning made for them from popular music, that things that might have had their origins in commercial establishments like the press, like literature, um, like uh, like Tin Pan Alley, like Nashville, nevertheless had communities of real meaning that were coming out of it. And this just hadn't yet really been applied to food. And the food he is talking about is Cincinnati chili. As you might have guessed if you have discernment from the title, the Cincinnati Chili Culinary Complex. So, what exactly is Cincinnati chili? It is this peculiar variation on what we might normally understand as chili. Chili, a syncretic food that is more or less representative of both the northern Mexican indigenous cuisine mixed with Spanish colonial influences, mixed with southern U.S. Influences in terms of English and German and other northwestern European settlement patterns that created this particular food. But what's peculiar, and I use the word advisedly, about Cincinnati chili is two things. One is the manner in which it is served, which is over spaghetti, and the other are the dominant spices of cinnamon and allspice. Otherwise, it is commensurate with other chilies. You're going to have to excuse me for a second while I add the spaghetti to the pot. I've set my timer for 8 minutes. 7 minutes 30 actually, considering the time it took for me to actually set the timer and walk back over here. And yes, so we will see how this goes. So it's served over, there are a couple of ways of serving it. One is over spaghetti, and that is what they call a two-way, spaghetti and the chili. Then there is a three-way, which is with shredded cheddar cheese. Then there is a four-way, which is with onions, and then there is a five-way, which is with beans. And that is the order in which you order it. You ask for it. The three, the four, the five, in that precise order. If you want a variation, for example, if you don't want onions, you don't say a 3 plus. You don't say 3 plus beans. You say a 5, no onions. It's a very peculiar system, but it's a system that the people in Cincinnati understand because it is a vernacular that arose. It arose in a way of ordering that arose within the context of the food, which is part of his argument in that there is a local embedded, non-systematic understanding of this food, which again is one of the reasons why we can consider it a, a traditional food, a folk food, as it were. The other way of serving it is over a hot dog, a cheese coney. And that in part has to do with how the originator of the recipe came to be. Tom Karadziev was born in Macedonia, although he understood himself as Bulgarian. And after immigrating to the United States, he was in New York for a while, working in various places, including selling hot dogs from a cart. And I brought that over to Cincinnati, and they had sort of the chili dog, as was commonly understood, already. When he came to Cincinnati and started started his own small eatery, and he reintroduced the chili dog concept, but he changed his he changed the recipe for the chili. For one thing, before that, mostly chili was sort of random scraps of loose meat, and he sought out fresh ground beef in order to do it. And then he added these particular spices, which are arguably, potentially from his Macedonian, Eastern European background in terms of the conspicuous spices of cinnamon and allspice. But it doesn't necessarily need to be limited to that, because you can make an argument that it's a northeastern United States food in terms of hot dogs, married to the chili of the Southwest United States, which again, as we've emphasized, is a whole bunch of various syncretic cuisines, and then seasoned with Eastern European seasonings. And so it doesn't qualify, as it were, as an ethnic food. It isn't representative of his background. It's just sort of too polyphonic. It's too much of a it's too syncretic to be recognized as such. And more importantly, because we don't necessarily need to determine the yay or nay of something, of whether it is or isn't an ethnic food. We don't. The folklorist doesn't. But it's not considered an ethnic food in Cincinnati. It doesn't have an association with a particular group, in the same way that, say, pizza still maintains a sense of Italian in most cities, despite the fact that it is not an ethnic food with an incredibly high barrier for entry. It's sort of a universal food, and yet it still retains that patina of identification with a specific cuisine. So where is it available? I mean, one of the proofs of how popular it is that there are there's a number of significant chains that basically that is what they serve. There's Empress, there is Skyline, there are a couple of others. Gold Star, I think, is another one, and it's in the article. And the chains alone comprise about 65 places. There are there's a whole host of individual parlors. The chains, they tend to make their food in off-site, make their chili off-site, and then deliver it to the various locations. The individual parlors make it on-site. And then it's also available in local restaurants that are serve much more than simply Cincinnati chili, and yet it needs to be on the menu. So to be in a Cincinnati restaurant is to have Cincinnati chili available to you. It is possible to have it in a bowl, and that's how they what they call serve it as a one way, but hardly anyone ever does. And peculiarly, it might have to do with the level of spice. Now, I've tasted and sampled it in the pot just as I was cooking it, because the recipe that I followed might not have been the best recipe in the world. It was from the New York Times, so you usually expect it's okay, but the recipe that they presented I haven't found particularly spicy. I also found that it was too wet, that I followed the instructions very conservatively, because when I do these, I try and do them as I am told to. And after all the simmering and boiling it down, there was still a lot more liquid in the pot than I would imagine sort of like a thick meat sauce to be. So I run up to a boil again and tried to reduce it again. And I got it to a certain amount of thickness. And then I had to go to bed. Then you refrigerate it, you skim the fat off the top, and then you reheat it. So I am following those instructions. And I'm going to be serving it over spaghetti any second now. And oh, I have 40 seconds left on this. So yes, we are going to test it. Now, it might be, again, if the chili ends up being spicy or is considered spicy, at least to the southeastern Ohio palate, the thing about serving it on the hot dog or serving it over pasta and with cheese, and the three-way is the most common way of having it. One of the benefits of doing it that way is that it cuts through it. Sort of the balance of the pasta, the balance of the cheese, cuts through the potential spice of the pasta, and that's my timer. Excuse me. So here we go. All right, I have freshly made spaghetti. Oh yeah, I only really made the one serving, so I don't know why I don't just pour it on that. Spaghetti. Hooray! Here is the chili. I kind of wish it were redder. A lot of people in my friendship group on Facebook have been making this recently. And I think if I make it again, I'm going to see what their secret is. So, a two-way, spaghetti and chili. Then you add cheese. And from the pictures, you add an awful lot of cheese. More cheese than I'm actually comfortable having. That is a three-way. That is the classic form. But, should I taste it as a three-way and then add the onions, and as a four-way and as a five-way? Why not? Okay. So here is Cincinnati Chili, three-way. See if I can get a little bit of everything on it. It is quite nice, but it needs a little bit more pep. The pep that can only really be supplied with onions. Now, if I end up getting chili all over my face for the rest of this video, and I don't notice, you're not going to make fun of me, are you? This is not one of those comment below things where it's like, dude had stuff on his face the entire time. That would be very mean of you. So, a four-way. Cheese. Nope, in order. I will do it. Pasta. Chili. Cheese. Onions. Here we go. Cheese has started to melt, which is a good thing, but the appearance has changed. I feel that was right in the microphone, so the misophonics among you must have it. The onions help. For the record, it's 10 o'clock, and I haven't eaten today. Finally, let us do it the five-way with beans. Now, beans are the big mystery for me. All recipes just say serve it with beans. They don't give any description about heating it. It is red kidney beans, I know that for a fact. So I have made myself up some. Don't know how many I'm supposed to put on, but I'm going to go for that. It's very strange for me to have a bean external from chili. There we go. The five-way. Num 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 num. Do I have onion in here? Do I have bean? Do I have chili? Do I have pasta? Do I have cheese? I think so. Oh yeah. This is good. I am brutally hungry. So parlors suggest that they have either the most original, as Tom Karadziev and his descendants can claim at Empress, the most original recipe, or the best, as presumably everyone else suggests. That there is some kind of secret that is present. Now, it isn't only served in restaurants. This isn't a restaurant exclusive food. There is enough of an understanding of what goes into it that most people have their own recipes for it, and they can exchange recipes, and they kind of know the various notes. Proportions might be up in the air, but think of it as something like fried chicken. You can make fried chicken at home, you can have fried chicken elsewhere. Everyone kind of knows what needs to go in. There are substantial variations, but there's kind of also a baseline palette. But still, the complex of how it is served, the complex of how it is understood is kind of a key. And what seems to distinguish, really, when you get down to it, who has the best, it has to do much more with the familial associations. That most people, when you sort of go past the initial nationalism of whose chain, what chain makes it better, or what family makes it better, or what community makes it better. Once you get past that initial stand, you have, it more or less boils down to people who have a fondness for it because it was the flavor of their childhood, which is because the parlor isn't an accident. Whether it's a chain or whether it's an individual, whether it's a restaurant, although the restaurant ones seem to be not as good. Tim makes the bold claim that restaurant non-specialized places, their Cincinnati Chili doesn't cut the mustard. You need to go to a parlor, whether it's a chain or whether it's an individual one. But what really has that association is the fact that was the Cincinnati Chili that you were raised on. So it brings me back to when I think about people arguing about pizza, and many places when you go into a town, they will start making claims about who has the best pizza, and 9 times out of 10, it's the claim that you make is the claim about is really based on where your family always ordered from, or where you used to hang out, because these aren't takeout establishments, these are eat-in places. Cincinnati Chili probably doesn't travel very well, so it's something that you would have. Your family would go to, and then they become features of the neighborhood. They become third places where people gather together, where families celebrate special occasions. They have their chili, and they have the variations on how it is served, so the families can have can individualize it. But at the same time, it's a communal meal. It is something that you can look forward to. It's something that when you leave Cincinnati, you come back and you have that taste of home. It is a fiercely local food on the city scale, but it is also a fiercely local food on the parlor scale. And they do things like sponsor baseball teams and softball teams and that kind of thing. So they've woven themselves into the neighborhood, and I don't think you can extricate that level of involvement and that level of association that people have with their food from the people and from the people who serve it and the places where it is served. And so what Tim is doing is basically setting the groundwork for why we need to understand these kind of activities as, at the very least, so many times folklorists, when they're making these sort of arguments, there are laying down the groundwork with a particular example of this is why we need to be paying attention to it, because by your criteria of tradition, it doesn't fit, because you are still thinking in terms of some kind of connection either to the land or connection to immigrant patterns. Neither of which work here, but we are talking about an urban food. An urban food that emerges in a it emerges within an industrial center, within an industrial food complex. It has its origins. It is as much a part of the popular culture of Cincinnati as it is of the home culture. And we need to recognize that these things occur. As I always say, the folk are contemporary to their times and they use what is around them to make meaning. And so if they are not cutting this off, if they have associations, if they have narratives, if they have vernacular, if they have a sense of identity that is reaffirmed through the eating of Cincinnati chili, folklorists need to be paying attention to it. And I'm getting worked up for this, but I'm 40 years too late, because thanks to Tim's article, thanks to Tim's argument, we have had this conversation. Folklorists do this, but it's the same. Someone had to lay the groundwork for this, and it was Tim, basically, in this particular article. So, what can I say? Clearly, I love this article. Clearly, you also heard me like 5 minutes ago say I haven't eaten yet today, and you've seen me have 6 bites, so I've eaten 6 bites of food today. So I'm going to end this video. I cannot recommend Tim's Cincinnati Chili Culinary Complex enough. I pronounced that weird. The Cincinnati Chili Culinary Complex. I cannot recommend the article enough. I also can't recommend Cincinnati chili enough. Next time, I'm going to make it spicier. Next time, I think I'm going to use the pressure cooker and see if I can make it that kind of thing. But I like the palate. I like the allspice. I like the cinnamon. And turn this camera off, and I am going to have me a couple of big old bowlfuls. So, I bid you well. My name is Ian. Eat well, be well, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.